Morning, this is Dr. Tom Knotts again, and I'm going to continue with our study on basically the proof that the Bible is correct, that evolution is a lie. It's a theory that takes more belief than to believe in a creator's hand. And the very science that people say they believe teaches that evolution is a lie and that the Bible is correct. We read in the scriptures that after God created the heavens and the earth, and he made the garden, put Adam and Eve in it, that he made all the living things, whether it be fish or birds or insects or plants. And one of the things is that God said everything would produce after its own kind. Now, you can have a variation within the species, like you can have a lion, you can have a kitty cat, you can have a tiger, you can have a minx, you can have a lynx. But you never have something changing from a cat into a dog. You know, they don't come into the lupus or the canine, and they just don't. You don't have a human becoming an ape or an ape becoming a human. And trust me, geneticists have tried to alter and change DNA, and they have to force it. And they can only take pre-existing DNA to create what it is that they want. Mendel's laws of genetics, which is something that everybody in science has or should study if they're in the biosciences or the biogenetics, or even, in that with crops and such. You talk to anybody. I came from corn country back in Illinois, and they would produce all kinds of strains and variations within the corn product. And but here's the thing: a seed of corn never fell to the ground, and no matter what type of manure it fell in or another seed fell on top of it, a seed of corn has never produced a bean plant. They only produce after their kind. You can't take an apple tree and have an apple fall to the ground and land on a pear or on some special kind of soup or primordial radioactive materials and it produce an orange, or even more, produce a human. What's interesting is we're biogenetically closer related, the human species, to many of the plants than we are to primates. There's actually much more complexity going on than what people are aware of. Just because something looks similar doesn't mean it is. Mendel's laws of genetics explain all of the physical variations that are observed in living things. What Mendel discovered was that in the genetic chain or within the genes, the genetic units of heredity, and this is why when you study Mendel, you're going to see he has his first law, his second law, and he deals primarily with heredity. The thing that he discovered, and what science has validated and proven over and over and over, is that all that happens is you reshuffle the genes. You never create a new gene. Now, let me emphasize this. In other words, a dog can never be made into a cat. They'll try to say, well, look at the whale. It's obvious because it's a mammal that it once walked on land. Look at the pelvic structure. I have to wonder at the ignorance of these people that get doctorates and such, or that teach. If the whale didn't have the pelvic bones, he wouldn't be able to reproduce. It doesn't mean he walked on land. That's preposterous. Within the combination species, you can reshuffle the genes. I mean, you can have a person with blue eyes and they can marry somebody with brown eyes, and they may throw out somebody with green eyes. But if you look into the genetic chain, it's stuff that's already there that's being put together to create. Nothing new is ever introduced. And so what Mendel's laws prove is that genes are merely reshuffled from generation to generation. Dominant genes will often push to the front while weaker genes will go less. That's why when you breed, inbreeding, look at history and many of the nobles of Eastern Europe and how they basically through inbreeding became so weak that you never get a stronger group. You see, based on evolution, they began inbreeding because they thought, oh, the Aryan race or this noble race, which comes all the way back from such and such an area, would produce a stronger species. But by their inbreeding and, shall we say, believing that they were culturally above, They created ignorant people that became, literally, they had what they called abominations. They had a king once who couldn't speak, he couldn't talk, he couldn't procreate, he couldn't even wipe himself. They were retarded. Different combinations are formed, but there never, and there never will be, there never has been different genes that are formed. Different combinations produce many variations within each kind of life, but there are limiting factors. For instance, you can have a little dog and you can have a big dog like a bull mastiff, but you'll never see a dog that's bigger than a great elephant. On the other hand, you'll never see an elephant that's as small as a mouse. There are limiting factors within it. Each kind, each species that's within a kind, good morning, Tammy, and each species that's within a kind has a limiting factor. And that's why when you study science, if you truly believe science, Mendel's laws prove that evolution is a lie and could never, and has never, could never have happened. So when you look at it, and science is based upon logic, reasoning, and fact. It's an acquiring of data. You have to observe it. You have to be able to reproduce it. And it should be a law. Once it's been reproduced and observed so many times, it becomes a law because it has to always produce the same effect. If there's ever a time where 2 plus 2 doesn't equal 4, that wouldn't be a law of mathematics, now would it? But 2 plus 2 always equal 4. In the natural way. People will try to manipulate it and do different things. So breeding experiments, common observations have confirmed that boundaries are set. God has set things in place. Man has tried his best. I had to study things I wish I'd never had to study in order to get some of my degrees. But I mean, they literally went as far in Russia as to having women breed with primates, and then primates breed with women or with men to try to produce a super soldier race. They then tried to genetically manipulate and splice in. And they've never been able to succeed because kind will only produce after its own kind. So this is Dr. Knotts, and I hope this is strengthening you because many people believe in the theory of evolution, and it goes against the Bible. And I believe the reason why the devil created it is because if you can destroy the first books of Genesis, where it says, in the beginning God, he created the heaven and the earth and all that therein exists. If you can take away somebody's belief in the Bible, you can undermine them. Jesus Christ is real. The scriptures are real. And science always proves the Bible right. We don't see a canary becoming as big as an elephant. You know, we don't see a canary breeding with another bird and creating a dog or a cat or a fish. So, you know, I remember when I lived in Sandwich, Illinois, and I was teaching creationism to the youth group, and the science teacher, because he had a master's and we were working on his doctorate, came down there in the church and challenged me in front of everybody. And then he started showing me all these pictures and scans of brains of fish and of man, and showed me, see how similar they are? This didn't just happen. I said, actually, it didn't just happen. It was by the hand of a creator. When you see similarities in design, it's because they come from a creator. A creator will use similar design. So all similarities do is produce evidence of a creator. It doesn't mean that they came from each other. You know, I can have a styrofoam coffee cup with a lid. I can have a hard plastic one, or I can have a glass one. Doesn't mean one came from the other. It simply means they have a similar creator in design. So Mendel's laws, his first law, his second law, all his laws, prove and state, which is accepted by all science, that no new genes are ever created. It simply reshuffles the genetic matter that's already there. All right, this is Dr. Knotts. I pray the Lord blesses you, and I'll keep trying to put a few of these out as often as I can. Lord bless you this day.